I have spooky bones with me today. Yeah. Hi all, I'm Educator Emily, and it's still October, which means we're still continuing with our theme of bones, dead things, and all things spooky, and you can kind of see this video as a part 2 to the video we did earlier in October, which was all about scavengers. Today, we're gonna be talking about how scavengers can eat dead and decaying matter that would absolutely, painfully, completely, totally obliterate you or I if we tried to do the same things. If you did not watch our first video of the month, it is called Nature's Cleanup Crew, and it gives you a little bit of a background about what even is a scavenger and some examples of scavengers here in North America and elsewhere in the world. So if you haven't watched that already, you can go ahead and find it on our channel. Again, it's called Nature's Cleanup Crew. But today we're going to talk about how scavengers can be nature's cleanup crew. So why is it important that scavengers have the adaptations that allow them to eat dead and decaying flesh? First, many animals that carnivores kill happen to be sick, old, or weak in some way. Now, if this animal is sick, it's possible that it could spread the pathogens from itself to the animals that prey on it through its meat or bodily fluids like blood, especially considering we're kind of the only carnivores that cook our meat that would then kill those pathogens. So eating raw meat presents the dangers to not only the carnivores that kill the prey, but the scavengers that feed on it afterwards. Second, many scavengers feed on carcasses that have been dead for hours, days, or weeks, right? And if anybody has left meat out on the counter for just a little bit too long, you know it does not take much for meat to start breaking down and decomposing. Sunlight and heat can speed up this decomposition process, and the microbes that eat and break down the meat produce toxins such as botulism and anthrax, things that can be incredibly dangerous to organisms if they ingest them. Other examples that live in dead and decaying flesh include cholera and rabies, things that would definitely kill me if I was traipsing through the savannah and decided to take a munch out of a 4-day-old wildebeest carcass. So, how exactly do scavengers survive eating this kind of stuff? Well, different scavengers have different adaptations that allow them to do so. Some, like the turkey vulture, whose skull is right there, their whole body is adapted to kill disease. First, to eat dead decaying things that could be a cesspool of bacteria full of botulism, cholera, rabies, and lots of other toxins, turkey vultures have incredibly acidic stomachs. Acids on the pH scale range from 0 to 7, with 0 being the absolutely, completely, totally most corrosive thing in the world, to 7 being more neutral like water. Now, to give you guys some scale, orange juice on the pH scale rates at about a 3, whereas battery acid rates at about 0.8, and water's at 7. Now, turkey vultures, their stomach acid is incredibly acidic, ranging on the scale between 0 and 1, making its corrosivity similar to that of battery acid. This means the stomach acid of a turkey vulture is strong enough to corrode certain kinds of metal. This also means that any disease, bacteria, or virus that hits the stomach acid of a turkey vulture is essentially incinerated on impact. Their dark feathers also absorb large amounts of UV radiation from the sun, essentially frying any toxins, bacteria, or viruses on their feathers to a crisp. And the whole pooping on their legs thing, that whole urohydrosis thing, is an adaptation that keeps them clean. Now, because their stomachs are so acidic, their poop is also incredibly acidic. So this means that there's any bacteria or anything on their legs after standing in a carcass for hours, it's just gonna be incinerated, essentially, by their incredibly acidic poops. Now, there are even some animals who have been documented to survive outbreaks of anthrax, outbreaks of canine distemper virus, and outbreaks of rabies. This is something that's very uncommon in the animal kingdom. Often these diseases decimate populations of carnivores. However, the immune system of the spotted hyena is incredibly impressive and is one of their adaptations that allows them to survive these diseases that would kill almost anything else. Now, it is not quite sure exactly how they're able to build up such strong defenses and immunity to these very powerful and scary diseases. However, research has shown that hyenas can produce antibodies to pathogens up to 1 year after the initial exposure. In addition, social rank also impacts overall immunity, with higher-ranking hyenas in a clan having higher levels of immunoglobulin and thus higher immunity than lower-ranking individuals in the same clan. This allows the higher rankers that higher immunity to consume things that could potentially be riddled with disease. Lastly, these guys have incredibly acidic stomachs as well. If you remember in our last video, I talked about how they're one of the only carnivores that can completely and thoroughly digest bone. If you pick apart any scat you find from a North American carnivore, you'll find flecks or shards of bone in their scat. It's not completely broken down. However, if you pick apart some hyena scat that is stark white, there's no flecks or shards of bone to be found because it's broken down into all these teeny tiny particles that gives the poop the overall white color. In order to break down something as tough as bone, you need a pretty acidic stomach. And if your stomach's acidic enough to digest bone, chances are it's acidic enough to eradicate any bacteria or toxins that are going to hit it. Now, this ability to consume rancid meat is something that scientists are incredibly interested in, and it's something that could have implications on human health. If scientists can find out how scavengers are able to eat this stuff, it's possible that we could use that knowledge to extend the shelf life of our most perishable food items like meat. This could potentially improve the quality of life for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across the globe. So studying the animals that people tend to ignore could actually be super beneficial to our species. But maybe don't go eating rotting meat in honor of spooky season, because science isn't quite there yet, so please don't get sick. But if you don't already follow Zoo Montana on social media or subscribe to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do that now. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using the handles that you see on the screen. Again, I am Educator Emily, and thanks for watching. Stay spooky.